Welcome back to the Healing Nurse channel. It's your girl, Nurse Coach Shell. I am here to let you know about this exciting new series I'm starting today. Um, Understanding Diabetes with a Holistic Approach is the name of the series. And in this 4-week series, I will be breaking down everything there is to know about diabetes from the basics to each individual type of diabetes. And for the very last week, I have a bonus for you. In that week, we will talk about type 3 diabetes, which is not something that's well known right now, but science is really digging deep into this and discovering that this is a form of diabetes that impacts not your blood sugar, perhaps in the same way as type 1, type 2, and gestational diabetes does, but it actually impacts the brain. So I'm excited to talk about that, but that won't be for a few weeks out. So if you're at all interested in learning about type 3 diabetes, please stick around. In this episode today, I am, like I said, going to go over the basics of diabetes, and I'm also going to start touching on type 1 diabetes. Um, this series is going to be for anyone that is interested in learning about diabetes, if you were newly diagnosed, or if you're caring for someone who was recently diagnosed or has been living with diabetes for quite some time. Just for a quick overview of my role, I just want to put this disclaimer out that I am not a doctor. I cannot diagnose or prescribe any medications, but what I am is a registered nurse with over 20 years of experience, 31 years in healthcare altogether, but almost 25 as a registered nurse. And within my scope of practice, using my nursing license, I am able to give education on medications, chronic illnesses, and give suggestions on things, but I cannot diagnose or prescribe anything. But being that I am a registered nurse, that is what sets nurse coaching apart from the other forms of nursing. Or, excuse me, not nursing, coaching. Nurse coaching is set aside from other forms of coaching like life coaching, relationship coaching, business coaching, that sort of thing. It is set aside from those other forms of coaching because I am able to actually utilize my nursing license from a medical standpoint and give you information from that scope of practice. So, with that being said, that is why my focus is on holistic healing, which is a little offset from traditional healthcare that we know today. And this is because I've witnessed over this past 3 decades how much healthcare has changed, and not for the better, for our sake. It has become a pharmaceutically insurance led organization that is more interested in pushing pills than curing anything. So, with the role of a nurse coach, it is to kind of bridge that gap a little bit and hope in hopes of getting back to the basics of getting to the root cause of issues versus just throwing pills at them. And so that is where nurse coaching is different, is important, is necessary in hopefully changing the healthcare paradigm from what we know it to be to what it could be, what it was supposed to be. And that is prevention and getting to the root cause instead of just treating symptoms. Okay, now that I've got that little spiel out the way, let's dig deep into diabetes, what it is, how it's diagnosed, how it's treated, and then we'll go into the different types of diabetes over the next few weeks. All right, so what is diabetes? So, a lot of people refer to diabetes as my sugar, which it is your blood sugar that we are watching, monitoring, and treating. And it is because it is so important for your body to be able to break down sugars into energy that can be used by your organs throughout the body. When your blood sugar is out of whack, it throws the whole body off. and it can impact every part of the body. It is such a crucial number, the blood sugar, that if it is not carefully monitored, especially if you are a known diabetic, my cat's coming in. Even if it's a known, even if you're a known diabetic and your blood sugars are out of whack, that puts you at increased risks for other chronic diseases. And so blood sugar is more than, or excuse me, diabetes is more than just blood sugar. It is how your body processes that energy. So when you consume carbohydrates or simple sugars, those sort of things, your body is supposed to jump into gear where your pancreas comes alive and it starts throwing out a hormone called insulin. Now, insulin is what your body uses to bring that blood sugar down. If you don't have enough insulin, or your cells don't know how to respond to the insulin, or you just have a constant, or your body is rejecting the insulin, then you'll end up having a buildup of sugar in your blood, and that causes damage over time. Now, here's the thing: while regular traditional healthcare focuses on insulin and the medications, I, as a nurse coach, would love to focus holistically on the whole person. And so, what that means for me and for my clients that I work with is we look at everything from your stress levels to your sleeping patterns to what you consume in your diet to how your gut health is going, and the holistic, whole, every single part of you, not just those blood sugar numbers. So, as I was saying, if you're only focusing on the blood sugar itself, you are running a risk of, excuse me, you are missing a huge part of the healing journey or healing process for your current situation, because like I said, you are not just parts and pieces, you are a whole person, and we have to deal with the whole person, every single part, in order to get to a better outcome. So, if you're a newly diagnosed diabetic or you've been dealing with diabetes for a number of years and you're just feeling like you're stuck and stumped and chasing your numbers all the time, it could be because you're missing an important component of you, that is blocking your ability to better manage your blood sugars. But understand that diabetes does not have to be a death sentence. It does not, it can be managed well, and it can prevent you from having blood sugar levels that are out of whack that eventually lead to you developing chronic illnesses later on in life, to include like heart disease, putting you at increased risk for stroke, for blindness, for nerve issues where you have numbness and tingling in your extremities. There's a number of things that can be prevented, even if you are a diabetic. It does not mean you have to develop any of these additional chronic illnesses that could be a part of the diagnosis of diabetes because of mismanagement of those blood sugar numbers. And um, what you want most of all is to have a solid blueprint in place on managing your blood sugar and your life in general. And it doesn't mean that your life has to be this stringent, can't do this, can't do this. No, you can do a lot in moderation. And that's with anything, be it diabetic or not. Moderation is key. So you can have sweets, you can eat pasta, but you shouldn't make that your main meal every single meal. You should not be snacking all day on sugary snacks. But that doesn't even mean that that is not even a rule for just diabetics. That should be across the board, because highly processed foods are enemy number one, diabetic or not. And that is something to keep in mind because everything is so fast and convenient today. Everything is order online, order this, order that. And very few people nowadays take the time to actually go in their kitchen and cook. The other side of that coin is having the financial means to be able to buy healthy foods to be able to cook. But we'll get into that. I'm kind of jumping ahead here. I need to go back and continue talking about what exactly diabetes is and how it impacts the body. Okay, I'm kind of repeating myself a little bit here, but what is diabetes? I'm going to give you just a solid definition. Diabetes is a health condition that affects how your body turns food into energy or fuel. It is how your body handles the glucose in your bloodstream and applies it to other areas of your body that can be eventually burned off and expelled from the body instead of just sitting in in your bloodstream, creating these high glucose levels. My cat is being bad, excuse me. So when you eat, your body breaks down most of your foods into glucose that enters into your bloodstream. And in response, your pancreas is supposed to release a hormone called insulin. I kind of already said this, but I'm repeating myself again. Insulin helps move the glucose from the blood in your cells, or excuse me, from the blood into your cells where it will be used for fuel. However, in diabetes, the system it sort of breaks down. And there's two main reasons why this system happens to break down. And that is because, as I mentioned before, your body either doesn't make enough insulin, if any at all, or your cells stop responding to the insulin appropriately, something referred to as insulin resistance. In both of these instances, the glucose that builds up in your blood when you are a diagnosed diabetic and your blood is not accepting the insulin appropriately to allow the glucose to be used as fuel. um, Over time, these high blood sugars will lead to something called hyperglycemia, which is high blood sugars. And if that is left untreated over an extended period of time, you will develop those other serious health conditions that I just mentioned: heart disease, risk for stroke, blindness, losing limbs, poor wound healing. There's a number of things that can occur um, as a result of these high blood sugars. So, in addition to the heart disease, the neuropathy, which is the numbness and tingling, a nerve condition within your hands and feet, you can get something called gastroparesis, which is an issue with the nerves in your gastric system in your stomach. It can lead to blindness, like I said. It could also lead to kidney damage, which is another form of neuropathy because of the nerve issue. Diabetes and blood sugars that are ill managed can really cause a lot of damage to the nerves within the body. And that can cause all kinds of things, like I was just saying: the blindness, which would be a nerve problem, the neuropathy, which is a nerve problem, kidney damage, that is a nerve problem. And over time, that kidney damage could get to the point where you eventually get to the worst stage of kidney damage and end up with needing either dialysis, hemodialysis, where they take your blood, clean it, and put it back, or it could lead to um, you needing to have a kidney transplant at some point in life, and hopefully you can find a donor. So, all of these things are the result of poorly managed blood sugars. And another thing that can impact your body as a result of high blood sugars is the risk for developing dementia and mental health issues like depression. See how I'm saying? The blood sugar can impact every part of your body, not just your blood sugars. And it also could lead to poor wound healing. So that's why they tell people who are diabetic not to allow anyone to cut their toenails. you need to go to a foot doctor, a podiatrist, to have your toenails trimmed. And that is because if you go to a nail shop, for instance, and they clip your nail too low and they break your skin, not only are you put at risk for developing a fungal infection from the equipment that they use, but you're also now put at risk for developing a non-healing wound in that lower extremity because of what? Nerve damage and poor circulation. So, th- when you see someone who is a diabetic, their nails are super thick, super duper thick. For they get very thick over time. And high blood sugars also impacts your skin, and I didn't even go over that. But it can make your skin very tough, and it can also make your toenails very thick. And so that is why they recommend you going to a foot doctor, a podiatrist, a specialist to actually have your toenails clipped. There's also some nursing organizations out there that go around and do toenail clipping as well. But those places, those individuals are who diabetics should be going to for their foot care to prevent them from developing broken skin in those areas and developing a wound that won't heal. Those non healing wounds over time, if they never heal, guess what happens? That's when you start seeing people needing to be amputated. So diabetes is not just blood sugar. Do you see what I'm saying? Diabetes is a very serious chronic illness that needs to be managed and managed well so that you can have the best chance of living a happy, fulfilling life that is not stagnated too much simply because you have a chronic illness. So as I mentioned, I'm gonna do a video to reflect each type of diabetes. The first type that I will discuss tonight will be type 1 diabetes. And type 1 is different from the other types of diabetes, and I'll explain why. Type 1 is the type of diabetes that you get as a child. It's often referred to as juvenile diabetes. And it is an autoimmune disease, unlike the other ones. So, what happens with type 1 diabetics is the body begins to attack the pancreas. And that's what autoimmune diseases do. They think that something within the body that should be there should not be. And so it begins to attack it, thinking that it is saving the body, but in actuality, it is destroying that organ so that it is no longer functional. So once the pancreas is attacked as a result of this autoimmune disease, your body can no longer create insulin or produce insulin. These people will always have to have supplemental insulin, always, because their pancreas is no longer working. The only time that they can get away from this, and this is a very rare thing, is if they go through and have something called an islet cell transplant, which is the islet cell is the cell that actually produces the insulin within the pancreas. So if they inject these islet cells, I guess it has the potential to aliven or awaken the pancreas back up, and it will begin to start reproducing insulin again. But again, this is very far few in between that people actually get approved to have this procedure done and are able to live, like a normal life without needing that supplemental insulin because now their pancreas is working again. For everybody else, though, that has been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, you will always need to have a supplemental insulin. Now, there are several types of insulin, and sometimes you'll get a variety of them. So, for instance, you may get something like a short acting insulin that you will take before meals, based off of your blood sugars. So, say for instance, your blood sugar right before you're about to eat is 179, and your doctor has provided you with something called a sliding scale for that insulin. So if your blood sugar is 179, usually those sliding scales begin at blood sugars of 149 and higher. And depending on how your doctor wants to fashion it. So say for instance, your sliding scale starts at 149 and it goes from 149 to 171. And that will say if your blood sugar is 149 to 171, take 1 unit of insulin. So being that you are at um 149 to 171. Excuse me, I just said that wrong. If your blood sugar is 179 and your sliding scale starts at 149, 149 to 171, you take 1 unit. So, being that you are at 179, you're going to be higher than the 1 unit and the cutoff of 171. 9 times out of 10, you'll go to the next tier up, which would be 2 units for 172 to 185. I don't know. I'm just making numbers up, but you get the drift. So, based upon what your blood sugar is, if you're using a sliding scale, you would look at your blood sugar result and then apply it to your scale and give yourself that much insulin. There's um, other routes of or instruction of insulin where they will also not only give you the pre-meal insulin replacement, but they will also do a carb replacement. So with carb counting, it can get a little tricky. And so with that, it is going to be so important that you have the nutritional information from the different foods that you consume so you can see how many carbs are in each one. So, say for instance, let me grab something quick. Okay, so say for instance, you're about to have some steel cut oatmeal. And these steel cut oatmeal have a total of what you want to look for on your nutrition facts are the number of total carbohydrates. This particular product has 32 grams of carbohydrates per serving, which is just one packet, right? So typically to do carb counting, um, one what is considered a carb um one carb total okay, I'm explaining this a little confusing. Okay, I was kind of confusing myself there. One carb choice is 15 grams of carbohydrates. So this has 32 grams of carbs. So that would be a total of two carb choices. Now, based on what orders you get from your doctor for your insulin, if the doctor says, for instance, take 2 units per one carb choice, this particular food item would require me to take a total of 4 units because it's two carb choices and it's 2 units per carb choice, making it 4. So I would do a total of 4 units for the carb counting and 2 units for my sliding scale, making it a total of 6 total units of short acting insulin. I know that was really confusing and it's probably going to confuse the hell out of you if you're not a diabetic or you're not on insulin. And I apologize for that. I'll have to figure out a way to better explain that. And then, in addition to the short acting insulin, you're often also prescribed a long acting insulin, something that covers you throughout the day a little bit longer throughout the day. So, that would be something like a Lantus. You'll take it twice a day, maybe. Um, and or once every 24 hours. It just depends on what your numbers are on a daily basis. Now, insulin is the primary source of treatment for a type 1 diabetic. They will sometimes also incorporate other things like metformin, depending on your blood sugar numbers, or if they're kind of questioning if it's truly type 1 or is it leaning more toward type 2, because sometimes they can look very similar to each other. But how diabetes type is determined is through blood testing. The most common and primary blood test that is used is called a hemoglobin A1C. And what that number indicates is either you don't have diabetes, you're pre-diabetic, or you are for sure a diabetic. So a hemoglobin A1C of 5.7 or less is considered um, you're normal, no diabetes at all. But a blood sugar of 5.7 to 6.4, that is considered a pre-diabetic. And this number could be altered for a type 2 diabetic, but it's not going to make a difference for a type 1. And that is because that type 1 diabetic does not produce insulin. You have to have insulin in order to not be a diabetic, first off, but also to manage your diabetes if you are determined to be a diabetic. So the A1C test is not the greatest test for determining if you're a type 1 diabetic or not. However, it is a good test to determine how well you've been managing your blood sugars once you're already diagnosed. And what a hemoglobin A1C is, that is a 3-month average of your blood sugars from the previous 3 months. And it should be that your blood sugar is as low as possible, or excuse me, your A1C is as low as possible, particularly lower than 5.7. That way you'll know that you're good, you're not a diabetic, and your numbers are very well managed. But anything higher than that, then that's when you start getting into the issues and the complications. But aside from the A1C testing for a type 1 diabetic, type 1 diabetics need a little more extensive testing. So they'll do something called an autoantibody test. And this is to determine if you actually have immune system markers that attack your insulin producing cells. And so a positive result would indicate that you do have an immune deficiency form of diabetes or type 1, or something called LADA, LADA, which is latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. Because remember, I said in the beginning, type 1 is typically known as juvenile diabetes. It usually is a childhood disease that occurs, but it can happen in adults as well. The other test that they do for type 1 diabetics is a C peptide test, and that is a test that determines how much insulin your pancreas is still able to produce. Normal levels, or excuse me, low levels definitely suggest that you are a type 1. Normal high levels suggest that you are either a type 2 diabetic or you have insulin resistance. Some other testing that they may or may not do for a type 1 diabetic is a fasting plasma glucose, which is a blood sugar after having not had anything to eat or drink for at least 8 hours. This particular test can be done, used for type 1 sometimes, but it's primarily used on type 2 diabetics and to check, follow up on pre-diabetics as well when they come in for their follow-up appointments, and you have to be fasting for that particular test. Another test that may be used to determine type 1 diabetes is something called a random plasma glucose test, and that can be done any time of day. You don't have to be fasting, but anything over 200 with symptoms, which I'll go through in a little bit, with blood, with diabetic symptoms look like, and it doesn't typically matter which form of diabetes you have. You typically, all of them will typically have the same type of symptoms that indicate that they are a diabetic. So, symptoms of a diabetic include excessive excessive thirst, and frequent urination. They pee a lot. I mean, a lot, a lot. And they're always thirsty, especially when their blood sugars are out of whack. They may have extreme fatigue where they're just exhausted all the time, just have no energy, not sleepy, but just ugh, just exhausted all the time. They may experience blurry vision, have unexplained weight loss, especially in a type 1 diabetic. And that could be wrapped back around to those nerve issues within the gut that happen with type 1 diabetics, particularly. They may Other symptoms may include increased hunger for some, numbness and tingling that I was mentioning before, which is that neuropathy, but this is usually in the later stages of the disease. And then there's also that slow wound healing that I had already mentioned. No, as I mentioned before, type 1 diabetics are typically managed with insulin. But other things that they do to manage their blood sugar or manage their diabetes is they need to make sure that they are monitoring their blood sugar throughout the day. And this could be through finger sticking, or you could get a continuous monitor, which are very, very helpful for some people. I know people who don't like them. The continuous monitors like your Dexcom and that sort of thing, for one thing, they say they're uncomfortable, they fall off frequently, and they're expensive. So going to the regular finger sticking may be a better option for you, depending on your situation. Um, Nutrition management, watching what you eat, following a well balanced diet that is more fruits, vegetables, more vegetables, I should say, and things without a whole lot of carbs. But you do want to consume carbs. You need that fuel. You just have to do it in moderation. It's managed through physical activity. You have to move. You have to exercise. You got to move your body to keep it functioning appropriately, and that holds true for a diabetic or not. You got to work your body out. Also, stress and sleep are important factors to keep in mind when managing your blood sugar. Stress makes your blood sugar go out of whack. Not getting enough sleep makes your blood sugar go out of whack. As well as getting regular checkups for monitoring your overall A1C, monitoring your eyes. You should have those checked every 6 months or so until your doctor tells you different. Your kidneys and your heart to make sure that you are not having increased cholesterol. Um, you're not developing atherosclerosis, which is hardening of the vessels, or um, kidney disease or issues with your kidneys starting to show up. And you can also incorporate supplements with the help of your healthcare provider to help manage your blood sugars as well. There's several supplements out there that can help regulate blood sugar, like cinnamon, and things like that. But there are some that you absolutely should avoid. The ones that you should avoid, I'll mention. There's more that you can potentially take than the ones you should avoid. The main three that you should avoid are bitter melon, because that may drastically drop your blood sugar and catch you off guard. Or there is something called Gymnema sylvestre. I I'll put it down below. But this is a potent blood sugar reducer. So you shouldn't take this because it could drop your blood sugar out and you won't even know what happened, because next thing you know you're on the ground because your blood sugar bottomed out. It's not worth it. And then ginseng, because of this its potential for interaction with multiple different medications, ginseng has always been a cautionary supplement that you want to watch out for. Now, don't forget, supplements are not cures. They are tools that can be used, but remember, they do have the potential of interacting with other medications. So you want to be careful before you try to start incorporating any type of supplement into your regimen. Make sure you are being closely monitored and you are open with your healthcare provider who prescribes your meds, so that everybody is on the same page. And as a nurse coach, I can also help facilitate that link between what supplements to avoid versus which supplements could be very beneficial depending on your situation. But aside from the medications and the other things that I've mentioned, the supplements, the meds, the exercise, getting the frequent checkups, doing your blood sugar checks, there's also other natural supports that are available to you that you could try, and that includes acupuncture to help with to help with the neuropathy, the numbness and tingling in your hands and feet, or it could help ease stress. It could help you stop smoking. Acupuncture is great in a lot of things. Just find a practitioner that does it, and they can explain to you the benefits and how that practice could help. And also getting functional testing like hormone testing, gut health testing, making sure that you are it your every system is in alignment for complete hemostasis of the body. And the other thing is, I'm going to plug me again, is holistic coaching. Book a free 30-minute discovery call with me, and we can see if there's something that we can pull together to help you get on track with your health. You don't have to be a diabetic, it could be for anything. Like I said, it's a holistic modality that I am leaning toward, healing mind, body, spirit, the whole person, not just one diagnosis or 10 diagnoses or no diagnosis. It could just be something related to finding your way and getting your confidence or whatever it may be. But this is a diabetes topic, but that is available to you through my coaching service, and you can check out the link below, um, and see what services I do offer. In addition, though, to those natural supports, you could also, for the mind body connection, do some mental health check ins, um, like having a good support network, which coaching can be a excellent support system for you. But having that good support system for family, friends, a support group, getting a therapist, practicing self awareness, self care, making that a priority, because you can't heal if you're not all the way, if you're not coming from within, then 9 times out of 10, you're not going to win. You see how I did that? But no, seriously, having gratitude, doing self talk exercises, just doing the mental work will help heal, because it starts here always. It doesn't matter what part of your body that you think you have to fix. It's going to always start here in the mind. Once your mind is solid, you can fix anything. I promise you. Once the mind is steady, you can fix anything. So, those are some things that could help you manage your your type 1 diabetes, or any version of diabetes, or no diabetes at all. These things are universal no matter what's going on in your life. They will be helpful in helping you get to the next level or the next step of your life. Okay, so we're almost 40 minutes in, and this video is getting pretty winded, but I wanted to go over quickly the diet um, options that you really should be thinking about. Your food is your fuel. So you want to make sure that you are fueling yourself with the highest quality products, nothing processed or very little processed. So you want to eat whole foods, green leafy vegetables, colorful veggies, lean proteins like chicken, and healthy fats, things like that. Like something that has, like olive oil would be a healthy fat. You want to avoid carbs um, that are slow or excuse me, you want to avoid carbs that are like high glucose producing, like white sugar, white bread, sodas, fast food, all those things. You want to have plenty of water. You want to drink at least a minimum of 8 glasses of water a day, if you can. You want to stay hydrated. That also helps keep your blood sugar nicely regulated, and it also keeps you from wanting to eat unnecessarily. And you also want to do some carbs. You want to do the carbs that are um, slow digesting. So, for instance, if you like oatmeal, still oats. Steel cut oats is better than your regular old Quaker instant oatmeal. That's not good for you. You want something, or you want to do beans and um, oh, I'm having a brain freeze for You want to do beans, you want to do seeds, you want to do nuts, you can do quinoa, um, flax seeds, all those types of things, hummus, chickpeas, those things are all healthy. But staying away from that fast food, potato chips, cookies, cakes, juice, all those things are just horrible for you, but you can have them just in moderation. Think of your blood sugar not as a death sentence, but as a part of you that just has to be managed a little bit differently. It's not the end of it's not the end of the road. It can be very easily managed, making life not complicated for you. If anything, I would think that life would be more complicated with unbalanced blood sugar than a life with well balanced blood sugars. What do you think? All right, so we are 40 minutes in to this first video. I am going to end this here, but for a quick overview, we've gone over just the basics of blood sugar, or excuse me, of diabetes, which is your body taking the carbs or the sugars that you put into it, using insulin from your pancreas to turn it into fuel that goes into your cells and into your organs and gives you that energy that you need to make it throughout your day, and even when you sleep at night you burn fuel. So, and also just an overview of type 1 diabetics. Those are individuals that typically are diagnosed in childhood. It's usually caused by an autoimmune dysfunction, usually from like a virus or something that causes the body to think the pancreas is foreign and needs to be eliminated, and so it'll start destroying the pancreas, causing it to no longer create insulin or not enough. And so that's when you need that supplemental insulin. If you are at all interested, please check out my website. The link is below. I've also included below a free practical guide to understanding diabetes below that you can download for free. And it just has a little bit of what I've already gone through in this video today. And then coming up next week, we will be discussing type 2 diabetes. It should not be as long because we won't have to go through the basics like I did with this video. But it's going to give you just the basics of diabetes and why it can be reversed, unlike type 1. All right, this is Nurse Coach Shell with the Healing Nurse channel. I hope that I have given you something that you can utilize in your daily life, and I hope that it can make a difference for you. And again, if you're interested in coaching with me, then please set up that 30-minute discovery call. I am so excited on working with and building a community, not just here on YouTube, but just outside in the community as a whole. We can heal together, we can grow together. Let's do this, y'all. All right. Thank you for sticking with me, and peace.